Hi, everybody. Good afternoon. Thanks for coming today. I'd like to introduce our guest today. It's Coleen Greco. And I met Coleen at Walpole Day, which I think was back in the spring. And I was walking around, and Colleen's business card said Coleen Greco or Greco? Greco, sorry. Coleen Greco, Joyologist. And I was intrigued. What is a joyologist? And she started telling me a little bit about it, and she's going to share that today. I thought you would all enjoy this talk. She's all about bringing joy back into our lives. So I will pass it along to her now. Thank you.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Can you all hear me in the back? Just give me a little nod. Okay, thank you. I just want to make sure that what I have prepared is what you're hoping to walk away with. So if I could just get a few brave souls to kind of explain maybe what you had hoped to learn today, I'm more than happy to adjust the content on the fly as well. Anybody care to? No brave souls. Yeah. Oh, good. Okay. Bingo. Yeah. There are quite a few out there, so you're absolutely right. And trying to, kind of let's distill all the information, but not take it in. Yep, definitely. Nothing wrong with that, right? Okay, one more. Joy. Right. I know. I get it a lot where people say, we need more joy in our life. And, you know, you'll come to see that there are a lot of different ways where you can get joy. And I'll move around so I'm not like on your lap the whole time unless that makes you uncomfortable. Sorry about that. But really, I like to talk about a holistic approach to wellness. So it's a mind, body, soul approach. So this isn't a get skinny presentation or anything like that. It's more about like how you feel. It's loving the skin that you're in. It's taking care of your body, fueling it with the right things so that you can have those positive thoughts. A lot of people don't realize that the food that they're taking in is actually contributing to all those awful thoughts that we all have all the time, either about ourselves or the environment or, the greater society. So feel free to ask questions along the way too. And this is the wellness wheel. And I like to kind of share this just to show the areas that we'll focus on today. Wellness, there's a lot of different areas like financial wellness. I'm not going to touch on that. Intellectual wellness, I won't touch on that. But really, it's more about physical, emotional, social, and a little bit on spiritual, although I'm not going to dive into some religious discussion. No worries there. That's a tough topic for another time. So really, it's about food and fitness, and please don't let that scare you off. Every time I talk about this, people say she's going to make me start to run or something. I'm not going to make you start to run. You do the thing that brings you joy, and if none of that brings you joy, don't do it. But I'll explain why that helps you get to a place of joy. Your feelings, of course, and we all have them, even the guys who don't like to admit that they have feelings. You have feelings, and that contributes a lot to your mindset. And then how that all ties together. So here's my story. This is my family over here on the left. My husband, Steve, and then I have two kids, Chris and Colin. I was in corporate IT marketing leadership for about 26 years and did not realize that I was completely miserable until we had a family trauma and I could not cope with it. It just absolutely shattered me. And so you can see this, I don't know what was going on with my hair here. I like to blame it on maybe like a strong wind or something, but I ate and drank my way up to weights that I hadn't seen since pregnancies and really was just destroyed. But as I like to say, my mess turned into my message. And I really believe that this all happened to put me on a path to share what I know with other people. Um, and so 4.5 years later, I took the weight off, but I really, not even the weight necessarily, but I had completely transformed my life and my mindset and really focused on the things that matter, which is really mostly those guys on the left. And really establishing self-love. So if you have never had self-love, I would love to help you with that, because we have one life. You should love the skin that you're in and the person that you are, because what's that? I know no, I know, you're absolutely right. A lot of people don't have it, and it breaks my heart, because you've got one life. You better love who you are. Knowing your worth, and then retiring those limiting beliefs, those stories that, always come up when you're triggered, like you're not good enough or smart enough or fast enough or whatever the fill in the blank is. Those are called limiting beliefs, and that's what I work really hard with people on doing, is getting rid of those so that you can really see yourself the way that everybody else sees you, which is an amazing human being. So food. There is no judgment about what you were just snacking on. I didn't even see it, so don't worry about it. Unless it was a pile of Halloween candy. No, I'm just kidding. The role that food plays in our daily lives is really important. And I will go in a little bit about what macronutrients are, just so you know and can kind of connect the dots. I don't expect you to remember any of this, but it's just good to kind of label foods as certain types. But also really it's gut health, and we'll get into why that is. Is that really bright pink, like blinding you right now? Because there's more. So when I was going through this talk, and I've given this talk before, over here on the left, I was starting to think about like obesity rates, and like how bad are they compared to maybe 25 years ago, before we had the onset of the internet and all these food delivery services and drive-throughs and Starbucks on every corner and Dunkin' Donuts across the street on every corner. In 2025, we're expected to hit 64% of all Americans would be labeled as obese. That is up 10% from 25 years ago, but that was only 20% in 1975. It's shocking, right? And so that was really interesting to me. And it's because of things like, the instantaneous nature of everything that we want and need today. Netflix. Who has Netflix? Yep. Or Amazon Prime or Hulu or whatever it is. DoorDash. Like, have you done Uber Eats or anything? Okay. Like, you're literally the only people in America that haven't, but that is an instantaneous thing, right? And my son the other day, in fact, I live up in Milford. He did DoorDash for a cookie place at Patriot Place. They paid $40 for 4 cookies. I almost had a stroke, but think about the person that drove that. They must have been like, haha, I'll take that order, right? Like $40. I don't even know who could afford that. He didn't get that kind of money from me, but somebody paid for it. And by the way, the crumble cookies, have you had crumble cookies yet? It's a good thing it's like far away from my house. That's But over here, if you don't know Dr. Vivek Murthy, he is the Surgeon General, the current Surgeon General, and he has labeled loneliness as the latest healthcare epidemic. And I think we can all relate to that on some level or another, especially on the back end of COVID, right, where we weren't able to see anybody. I know lots of people that had to visit people in nursing homes and kind of wave outside the window, right? There's like these horrible stories, and it has conditioned us to just be really, really lonely individuals. And a lot of times people use food to try to combat that. But the role of food isn't for comfort in grief. It isn't for punishment, although I think we've probably all done that at one point or another. Self-sabotage. It's not your friend. Although it is really great in community and for, cultural reasons, it's really only there to keep you alive. And if you want to test this theory, just stop eating for a couple of days and see what happens, right? Like, that's one way to do it. It's only there to keep you alive. So we're putting unfair expectations on food. And that's, I think, a really interesting point to think about. If I'm going too fast, by the way, because I do have a Boston, personality, just let me know and I will slow down. Who here has heard of gut health? Okay, because some people don't understand what that means. So your gut is your small intestine. It's not like the bulge, it's the small intestine. When you think about your immune system, a huge amount of that, I believe it's 75% of your immune system lives in your small intestine. So if you're not taking care of your small intestine, you are compromising your immune system. So maybe you get sick a lot. Well, that's because you're not feeding yourself the right foods, right? So on top of your immune system, there's also hormone production and absorption. So if your gut isn't healthy, your hormone production isn't efficient, and then the absorption isn't efficient. So all the hormones get produced and absorbed in the small intestine, and they get sent to the brain. So again, if this isn't in check, this isn't in check. So without the right foundation, your energy is decreased, your digestion gets disrupted. I know we probably all have a good story there. I know I do. Your sleep is spotty, so maybe you've noticed your sleep, getting really disrupted. And some of that does come with age, which is fine, but there is a lot of it that has to do with the food that you're eating. Your organ function really relies on the right nutrients in order to be most efficient. Your mood stability, I can tell you, if you give me anything that has gluten in it, I would hide for the next day or two. My mood goes all over the place. And then brain function. So back to that organ efficiency. Any questions so far? Is this hitting the mark or educational? Yeah? Are you just telling me that because you think I'll cry? Because I would probably cry. So this can get kind of heavy, so don't let it get heavy. People often say, I should eat X number of calories a day, like say 1,500 or something. That isn't the point. The point is which calories. So if I take you two lovely ladies and I tell you to eat 1,500 calories and all you eat are carbohydrates, you're going to blow up like a tick. You have, which is really fun. You decide we're going to have a balanced approach of carbs, fats, and proteins. You're going to lose weight. But you guys are consuming the same amount of calories. So the question is which calories, and because you understand that each calorie or each macronutrient has a job, your body is attuned to it, you start to lose weight. So macronutrients, or macros for short, are simply carbs, fats, and proteins. So every bit of food you eat or drink is a carb, a fat, or a protein. It just is. Carbs are not bad. They get a really bad rap because they taste the best and they're the sugariest of things and they're just more fun. Like yesterday, Halloween. You probably had a lot of carbs. They're the primary source of ATP, and you don't really need to know what ATP is other than to know ATP is the thing that moves energy around the body. So when you're consuming carbs, you are helping ATP to move around the body, and you're giving yourself like a more efficient energy system. Carbs are also the first to empty out of the stomach. So maybe in the morning you have a banana and you're hungry an hour later. That's why, because they're the first to go. You go right through them. Fats, also not bad. Fats are an alternative source to ATP, but they're really needed to move protein around the body. They're kind of like the transportation system. So they're like, okay, protein, get on my back. I'll take you to where you need to go. So we want fats to do that, not to move energy around, because you kind of like want to put everybody, like all the dance partners go in their right places. And fats empty out of the stomach second. So if you have like your banana with a little bit of peanut butter, now you're kind of extending the life of that snack a little bit longer. Protein, and this is the one I bet the large majority of you probably consume the least of, because a lot of people do this. It's the only macronutrient responsible for burning fat. So if you want to burn fat, you need to eat more protein. Protein also builds and repairs muscle. So we were just talking about your backache a little bit earlier. We want to make sure you're consuming a fair amount of protein to try to support the repair of that muscle. So when you consume that in the proper balance, you hopefully get that one on the right. Definitely not the one on the left. So any questions about the food before I move into how fitness plays into your overall mindset and mental health? So not today or tomorrow, but yeah, it just takes, it's a gradual thing over time as we look at like the food that you're taking in, which calories are you consuming? Maybe pull some of the carbs down. That's my guess, is you're probably consuming a lot of carbs. We also tend to hold a lot of carbs in our stomach, and increase the amount of protein. And that's what happens, is it just tips the scale. You what? Read the carbs. Yeah, I mean, carbs again. Yeah, and you really don't need as many as you think you do. But again, they're the tastiest and kind of more fun snacks than, like a piece of chicken. But but, maybe you pull back a little bit on the fun in favor of your health. Yeah.
Like different variations of the carbs, proteins, and fats, like some better than others. I don't know. You didn't
Yeah.
express that.
Yeah. Well, I do a little bit in the fitness part, but I can definitely touch on it now. So if you put oh, you're fine. No, you're fine. I could change on a dime. It's fine. If you have like a banana and a bag of chips, they are not equal. You're absolutely right. They're both carbs. The chips also have fat in them, which is irrelevant for this. But one is like junk food, and one actually has nutrients and different vitamins in it. So you're absolutely right. Which carbs also matter. The other thing you might want to consider, and I'll get into this a little bit more when we're talking about, fitness, is you want a fast burning carb before a workout, because you want that instant sugar rush, right? So like the banana would be a great fast burning carb before a workout, where chips is like, you might want to just like get under the covers and take a nap, right? Was there another question? Yeah. I do. I don't have it here, but I can send it as a follow-up. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that's a great question. So generally speaking, before I look at anybody's unique situation, because your gender, your age, your fitness level, there are 5 or 6 different variables I look at. But generally speaking, about 30% of your diet coming from carbs, and 30% coming from fat, and 40% coming from protein is how you can make that shift. Yep. So fitness. Oh, I just wanted to say, so the role that fitness plays in how you fuel yourself really matters. But again, the fitness isn't, go join Orange Theory and work yourself out to death. I'm not saying that. I'm saying movement is key for a number of reasons. Let's make sure you're fueling it the right way so that you can maximize the benefit. So don't worry. I know you can't read this, and that's not the point. The point is, there are lots of purposes around exercise, but the summary is that working out supports your mental health, not your weight loss. And that has been a misconception for as long as I can remember. And I'll explain why in a little bit, but I just want to drive that point home. If you're going to work out, do it because you love it. Do it because it brings you joy. Otherwise, you're never going to stick to it. You know, if you told me right now that I had to go swim a mile, I would give up. Not going to happen. If you told me to run, I would consider that, right? I like to run, but swimming, I can basically not drown. So that's not fun for me. So this is kind of what I was saying is carbs will give you the fuel you need for that workout. We have things called glycogen stores. And so that's where the carbs kind of are stored in kind of like a holding cell. And as you're working out, your body pulls from those glycogen stores to give you a little bit of fuel. Some people wake up at, say, 5 a.m. and do their workout, which is great. They can use their glycogen stores. But if you're not working out until 10 or 11, you have to have something in your stomach to pull from. Because once you do deplete these glycogen stores, it takes about, I think it's 22 hours to restore. So then you're just kind of gassed for the rest of the day. So that's why you should have a carb before your workout. And then protein after to rebuild and repair. So I get this question all the time. If you want to lose weight, do you do more cardio or more weights? What do you think the answer is? Don't read it. Cardio? That's a trick question. The answer is it doesn't matter because it's for your mental health. Like this is because you're bringing your joy. Do it because you love it, and then you'll do more of it. But again, you know, somebody makes you do something like, go give me 50 push-ups. I would be like, good night. So then we get into the feelings. So this is where I really want to, I think, you know, we were talking a little bit earlier about how to keep your mindset focused on all the greatness that you have in your life and not, you know, the things going on in society. Back in high school, do you remember learning about the id, the ego, and the superego? Probably. And you're like, I don't care because that's not, like, I want to go into a totally different field. If you're anything like me, I didn't care. But I care now because the ego is the thing that is kind of like a supercomputer in your mind. So the ego remembers all these stories. So even when you were little, you had, you know, like a fight with your sibling and, you know, you remember certain parts of that story and your sibling remembers other parts of that story. That's the ego. The ego is like the recall center. And it can get you into trouble. It's at work all the time. It doesn't take a break. It likes patterns. So it's like, oh, I remember that story. And it serves it up to you again and again and again. Like, I'm not good enough. I'm not smart enough. Whatever yours is, you probably know it off the top of your head. Or the ego's pulling it up right now. It doesn't like change. So even when you try to fight it and you're like, but I am good enough. It's like, no, you're not. Here's 50 different stories that I can show you that happened in your life to prove you're not good enough. So that's the bad part of the ego. It thinks it's keeping you safe because it's recalling memories that you trained it. The majority of these stories, though, aren't true. And when you end up digging into them, you realize, oh my gosh, I was so hard on myself. I am good enough. And I have the proof to back it up. So this little gem, it's one of my favorites. It's called I Can't Do Anything Right. So this is, I'm going to illustrate the ego at work. Tell me you haven't felt this way, right? Maybe you feel that way right now. I don't know. But I'm going to the gym one day and my kids are like, I don't know, 5 and 7 or 8, something like that. And so, you know, we lock them in the house. We both go to the gym. And the workout time in the morning was mine. My husband was always supposed to go at night. And he started coming in on the morning shift. And I was like, and I was so proud of myself. I said, if you come in on the morning shift, you're leaving early to go start like kid duty. Because this is my time that you're jumping in on. And he said, fine. So he'd leave like 15 minutes before I would. And this one day I run into a friend and I start talking and I'm like a little late, and I never called him to say I was running late. So he calls and I'm like a mile away from home. And as you can imagine, the conversation got a little spicy and I was like, I can't do anything right. Well, I didn't know he needed to be to work early that day. And so I was causing him to be late. And that I can't do anything right story haunted me that entire day. It was just like, I can not do anything right. I can never do anything right, over and over and over. Has anybody ever experienced something like that? Because if you don't raise your hand, you're lying. Maybe it's not this exact story, but you've done this to yourself. So as I started to go through my day and realize, is that really true? Can I really never do anything right? Like, I can't be this horrible person that raised these great kids and ended up still married after all these years. Like, there's got to be something. So I started going through the day and saying, like, okay, what have I done today that was right? And I made a list. And then when I made the list of the things that I had done wrong, I came up with one. Now, that doesn't mean I'm a perfectionist, but it disproves the story. Do you follow that? Like, so you work through and you get to this happy girl who's like, hang on a second. Why am I being so hard on myself? I didn't make a phone call. Big deal. By the way, he didn't tell me he had to be to work early that day. Like, there's many sides to this story. This is what the ego does all the time. It pulls up the former slide and it shoves it right in your face. And it says, you can never do anything right. I have all the proof. You can retrain the ego to tell yourself a different story. And with a little bit of grace, some days a lot of grace, you can get to this person and you end up retraining the ego, and you let all of those limiting beliefs that we were talking about earlier go. Like when you're looking at the news and you realize all these terrible things going on, that doesn't mean your world is in chaos. Your world is great. You've made it. I did this post yesterday where I was like, I've made it. I'm married. I have 2 great kids. I have an awesome husband. Yeah, there's some stuff going on in the world, but I have a house. I can lay on my own pillow at night. Like, what else do I want? Like, I've done it, right? So it's all about choosing what you focus your mindset on, because you can't control everything, and you can't get sucked up in everything either. Does that make sense? Were you just being polite? So this is how the SNAP method was born. And this is how you end up working through those steps. So the first step is when that trigger comes, the I'm not good enough, I can never do anything right, whatever it is for you, you just stop. You don't talk. You don't fire off an email. You know, have you ever fired off an email or a text or something and it's like you're shaking, you can't even, so many misspellings, you can't get it up fast enough? Don't do that. You break the pattern by simply sitting with it. And it's hard. Sometimes you have to sit on your hands, but it's really important to just stop. And it's maybe 5 or 10 minutes, and it's long enough to kind of cool the trigger down. I don't know why I put this over there. I'm over here. I'm just getting my steps in. The second step is to notice. So this is where you take out your journal, if you have one. If you don't, I wrote a great one, it's up here, or a pad of paper, or whatever you have. But you take out some paper and you record all the symptoms and the stories. So when these triggers come up, you have some sort of physical, visceral reaction. For me, it's in my throat. Some people, their palms will sweat, they'll start to shake, or they feel their mind race, whatever it is. But you do have a physical symptom, and that's the great way to begin to recognize these triggers. And then the stories kind of come along with it. So record all of that as you believe it to be. And you let the pen flow. So there's a psychological connection between your mind, your fingertips, the pen, and the paper that you just can't break. It's not the same connection as a computer. So typing it on a computer is not recommended because you can't really mimic that. But the pen, when you're writing, you just can't lie. It just will get you to the truth, and it's faster than you think. There was a pretty heavy limiting belief that I had that I think I got to the truth in about 4 pages, which was pretty awesome. Now, retraining the ego on that one took a little bit longer than 4 pages, but at least I got to the truth and I was able to figure out what to do with it. The next stage is accept. So I also call it analyze. So this is where you review your entry and you determine the comments that are based on fact versus emotion. So I can never do anything right. I looked at the facts. I had one thing I had done wrong and 90 something things I had done right by that point in the day, including showering, which I was quite proud of. Right? So it's like, which story's true? Factually, I do a lot of things right. So I can't believe that story anymore. And that is literally how you let it go. I've never had that I can never do anything right story pop up again. When it comes up, it just goes right past me. There's no emotion tied to it at all. So you use the data to prove or disprove the story. And once you identify the I can never do anything right trigger, you get to decide what to do with it. You can hold on to it if you want, but you know it's a lie. Why hold on to it? And then this is my favorite step. It's called practice gratitude. I thank the trigger for coming because it keeps me humble and because it's my body's way of telling me there's more work to do. It is incredibly humbling when you realize how horrible you have been to yourself. And when I think about the things I have said about myself, if my kids ever knew the things that I said about myself, they would be heartbroken. Right? And you probably would too, and you don't even know me. You'd probably be like, how could you say that about yourself? So that's another indication that those things that you're telling yourself are just lies. You don't have to believe them. So this is how you get to joy, guys and girls. The combination of the right food, fueling your body to keep your hormone creation and absorption efficient, movement that creates fresh, rich red blood cells that shoot up to the brain and create serotonin, and properly addressing the triggers is how you get to joy. Once you've taken care of those pieces, you can't help but see all the amazement in the world. It's just like you don't even see the bad, which is pretty amazing. But all these tools, I hope your takeaway is that they're all within you right now. You have all this already. You just don't know it and potentially not using it. So I always tell people the life you want is yours for the taking. If you want to live in that life of, feeling yucky about situations or having no energy or whatever, you can choose to do that. It's your life. But if you want the change, you can have it. And I always tell people you can't pour from an empty cup. I don't know if you've heard that before, but if you're not taking care of yourself first, think about the shoddy product you're giving off to those you love. When I was in that former state, I was giving like the dregs. Does anybody use that phrase anymore? Dregs of the potato chip bag? Like my dad used to use it. You know it. The dregs of the potato chip bag, like the very bottom of the potato chip bag, off to my kids and my husband. They didn't get the best of me ever. I thought they did, but I wasn't complete myself. So I just think it's really important to think about, what do I believe is keeping me from feeling truly fulfilled? And if you already feel fulfilled, that's amazing. That's my hope for everyone. What role did I play in getting myself to this point? Like there was probably some lying to yourself and self-sabotage that got you there. And are you willing to make the change that, is required to architect the life that you want? And then the key takeaway, like I've already said, is you have all the tools you need inside of you to take this journey. Don't wait for next time or even next week. My mother used to say, I'll start on Monday. And I'm not going to cry, but when she was diagnosed with cancer, she lasted 39 days. Like that Monday didn't come. And I just, that, that'll stick with me forever. So this time is all any of us have. So it's just my hope that whatever you're looking to get out of today, that you got it and that you apply it. And that's it. Oh, thanks. I'll have to take a picture because my husband won't believe me that people were clapping. So you have to smile. And I'm blind, so keep going because I hit video. Yep. Well, you guys know, right? Like I'm at that point where I'm looking under my glasses because I'm not quite ready for progressive. So everything I have to go like that to like read. You do that? Any questions or? Yeah.
I was just going to say that like Tuesday something went very wrong, and then the next thing I'm saying to myself, not what you say, but everything I do is wrong. And then when you say to take something, so I get home Tuesday night, the reading, so I drink coffee, and the next thing you know, I have acid reflux.
Yep.
It could work, but
Yeah.
it's not the best thing. I don't give it.
Well, I mean, if you want to wake up in the morning, coffee is a great thing. I personally don't drink coffee, but yeah, that is not like, if you think about whatever was troubling you, that is not a solution.
One thing went wrong.
Yeah.
I made a bad decision. Up my whole day, and
Yes.
everything started going wrong.
And then you were like, oh, I'm having coffee.
I was so mad because I had canceled one thing, and then I rushed home, and the person doesn't show up, and I said, what did I do with everything I do? So
Well, ask yourself, what value is the coffee bringing to the solution, right? Exactly. But that's not how we think in the moment. That's why the first step is stop. Like if you stop and don't even reach for the coffee, but just stop and be like, yeah, I'm mad. Pretty, or the booze. That's another one. Yeah, you've been wound up about it for 2 days. Yeah, and you lost 2 days of your life on that.
and my problem wasn't solved at all.
Right. And then how well did you sleep on Tuesday night?
Terrible.
Right.
Awful. And then I had a rotten day on Wednesday.
So you get it.
That's why it was good that I'm glad you were the perfect speaker today.
Oh, thank you. Any other questions? Yes, sir. Hey. Eeyore, hey, Pooh. It does. Now, Eeyore doesn't get it as fast as Winnie the Pooh does, right? Hey, Pooh. Like the light is too bright. It's not that it's a beautiful sunny day. Like Eeyore thinks the light is too bright. But so for, depending on the different personality, I almost said disorder. There might be that too. But depending on the different personalities, I might take a different approach. Like I have this guy that I'm coaching right now, and he's like, well, it's a terrible week. And I looked at his week and I was like, you lost 4.5 pounds. Who wants to lose 4.5 pounds in a week? Like, would that be awesome to you? And he's like, well, I didn't have a great time at the gym and I wasn't sleeping well. And I was like, then we work on those things. You don't like discount the win. Sure, you didn't have a great workout. How about you take a couple days off because maybe your body's tired? How about that? How about you stop going to the gym twice a day, which is what he's doing, right? So it's like for him, I'm trying to like get him to see the long game, but he's only looking at like the day. And when I looked at the data, he had lost the 4.5 pounds earlier in the week and the number didn't change for a couple of days. And he was like, well, look at that. It failed. Right? Yeah. Yeah. So everybody's a little bit different, but it's over time getting them to see like, that example that you're talking about, maybe with like the coffee, like breaking it down and saying, well, how did that help you solve your problem? Oh, it didn't. You might think differently now next time, so everybody kind of has a different angle. Does that answer your question? Probably not. Who'd had the wine and fallen asleep? Well, that helped. Actually, I used to drink beer, and I had a thing. I had my before picture on our beer fridge, and I wrote that each craft beer was 307 calories. You think I opened that beer fridge again? I was like, heck no. I'll find something else. Like, I'd rather eat 307 calories than drink it. So, yeah. Any other? Yes, ma'am. Are you willing to architect the life like this one? So what do you believe is keeping yourself from feeling truly fulfilled? Do you want to take a picture of it? You could do that too. What role did you play in getting yourself to this point? And that's not a self-deprecating question, by the way. That's more like, let's just own that we put the food or the drink in our mouths and made the choice. And are you willing to architect the life that you want to make lasting change? Okay. Whoops. Anybody else? Yeah. There is one. I'm a unicorn. I'm a unicorn. No, like the day I created it. Yeah. I came up with the title because so I do nutrition coaching and mindset coaching, but I wanted like an umbrella because what happened that I didn't bother with the story is that before picture was me 52 pounds heavier. And when I got to about 35 pounds down, I had been working with a nutrition coach, and I said, don't you want to know what caused me to gain the weight so that I never go back there again? Maybe we could develop some strategies. And he said, I'm not your therapist. And I was like, boy, you better sit down because I am not, but with my personality, I was like, you gave me an idea. Because it's all mindset. The reasons, like you said, you had a bad day, you went for something. I have a bad day, maybe I go for a donut. Somebody else goes for a prime rib, right? Like everybody does it, but it does nothing to improve your situation. So the key to joy and feeling your best is really your mindset. So that's where it came from. And I just think joy is just a happy word. I don't know.
I was going to say, everything I did after that Tuesday exacerbated the situation that made it worse. Like I pulled out my phone lines. I don't want to talk to anybody.
Yeah.
Everything I did made it worse.
Well, go home and plug your phone back in because somebody is worried about you, I'm sure. But yeah, you're right. Yes, ma'am. I'm sorry. So I teach people the value of food, just like we were saying, like a banana is a carb. So we look at the things that you eat and the things that you enjoy. I don't do meal plans because I'll tell you, to eat something for about 5 minutes, you'll follow it and think it's cute, and then you'll hate me. So I don't do meal plans because I think that just that gets you to not live your life. This is so how you can figure out a way to live your life the way you want to live it. You might love a whole bunch of, I don't know, carrots and chicken, and you may be a complete vegan and think that's disgusting, right? Like everybody's different. And so that's important to recognize. So I teach people the value of food and what they need for their body type in order to feel their best. Does that make sense? Well, so they give me their data. So I know their starting weight, their measurements, I shouldn't say their measurements. I really only have them measure their waist. But their body weight, their age, gender, activity level. Because a lot of people think, well, hey, I do a couple laps in the pool. I should be able to have more calories. If you knew how little that actually burned, you would be depressed. So I will never tell you that. But a marathon trainer would get more calories, right? That's an endurance event. So that makes sense. So I take a few factors like that into consideration and then come up with the the macro targets, the carb, fat, and protein targets that you would need to eat. And then when people reach whatever their goal weight is, and it's different for everyone, I teach them how to maximize their calorie intake so that they can just live that way the rest of their life. They don't have to, diet. I don't believe in diets. Yeah. Yes. I do, yeah. And I also have these fun little cards that say, what is a joyologist? Because everybody asks. And there's a little fun picture on the back. Over here. Yeah. Yeah. Beautiful. That's why you don't look at that. But what are you actually doing? You're creating fresh, rich red blood cells that shoot to the brain and produce serotonin, and you feel better. That's the only thing that matters. The thing is, you are burning calories just keeping yourself alive. At the same time, that's like most of your caloric burn for the day. I don't really like to tell people that. Yeah. Yeah. And I tell people too, like I posted on my social media yesterday, I was like, listen, I am not the type of coach to say, don't have the Snickers. Like for the love of Larry, have the Snickers. Just don't eat the whole bag of Snickers, right? Maybe you just set out a couple of pieces. Like it's about moderation, but it's also learning that you're going to have the Snickers last night. Okay. So when you weigh in this morning, you don't get to self-deprecate yourself now because you made the choice to have the Snickers. Your weight went up a little bit. Most of that is water retention, not real weight gain, and it'll come right back off in a day or two. So that's the other thing I teach people is to break the emotional connection with the scale because that is real. They give that scale so much power that it does not deserve. It's a piece of metal. Like, let's be real. It does not deserve the amount of power we give it. So we break that too. Yeah. Oh, yeah. I personally, because I understand what you mean about not having the time to fit it in. We make the time for the things that are important, for sure. But it's also like I'll give every bottle of water. I have a few of like the flasks. I don't know if anybody has them, but I'll have each bottle of water I give a job. So if I'm not working out that day, maybe it's finish that by 10 a.m. So I'm just, I'm always looking at the clock for whatever reason. So I'm like, wow, it's 9:30 and I haven't really made progress on that. Better get on that. And I've had kids. So guys, I'm sorry, but I'm constantly aware of where the bathrooms are. I don't know that you ever get over that. So like, whether I drink a lot of water or not, I've always known where the bathrooms were. So it's like, I don't care anymore. And then I also try to shut it off by like 7 if I'm going to bed at 8:30 or 9. So I'm not up multiple times a night. Yeah. But yeah, I try to give it a job so that it's like a little goal and I'm getting up for a snack around 10 anyway. I might as well refill my water. Yep. Yeah. Or you could take a few of these actually. I was going to say elastics, but I remembered I had these. You could take a few of these and so that's 24 ounces. Let's say you wanted to have, I don't know, 5 of them or something. You just like take one of those off every time you refill it. But you can make a game of it, whatever works for you. That's a good idea. Is there another last question? No? All right. If you want, I have stickers and what is a Joyologist and a sign-in sheet if you want me to follow up with you for any particular reason and my cards and these fun little bracelets. But thank you for your time today. Appreciate it.